Hello there, and welcome to the How to Market Your Horse Business podcast with Denise Alvarez. I am Denise, and I am so glad you're joining me here today. Now, just in case we are new friends, before we dive into your next launch, let me briefly introduce myself, all right? So as I said, my name is Denise, and through my business, Storm Lily Marketing, I get to help dream-chasing horse business owners to clarify your messaging and make a doable marketing plan to help you turn your online audience into your customers. I do that through one-on-one coaching, as well as website design and website content, and Social Stride, my monthly coaching program. And I do each of these things, including this podcast, so that you all can be out doing what you love to do with your horses, right? Out in the barn, out with your clients, out doing lessons, whatever the case may be in the horse world. I want you to be able to do more of that. And I believe marketing will help you get there. So that's why on this podcast, you can expect a mix of step-by-step strategies and basic how-tos that will help you not only see what's possible for your business, but to guide you through that process and help you make it happen. So today on the podcast, as I mentioned, we are talking about launching. And I will define that for you. But the reason is because, as you all know, if you've been here with me for a while, I just recently opened the doors to Social Stride, my monthly coaching program, for a short time. So we would call that a launch in the marketing world, right? And I have experienced firsthand through this launch, as well as other launches, and through my clients' launches, the highs and the lows of launching, the fun that you can have, the conversations you get to have, the added intensity of your work, the action that's happening, all of those things, along with the mental toughness that's required, are happening in a short time as you launch your products and your services. And it can be super fun, and it can be super exhausting. And it can also give you a lot of clarity around your products and your services. So what I want to talk about today is how you can make the most of it and how you can honestly enjoy it, because it can be a very fun process. So before we get into that, let's define what I mean by a launch. So when you Google it, the definition you're going to see is that a launch is a planned and coordinated effort to bring a product or service to the world. Okay, so it could be for the first time that you are launching a product or a service, or it could be something that you have already launched before. So perhaps you have a mentorship program, or maybe you have an assistant training program, or an online membership or coaching program like I did with Social Stride. Or maybe you're planning to launch a digital product or an online course or a limited edition physical product, or you have a brand new service offering. All of these things are going to require a concerted effort, a launch, right? So that's what we're talking about, and that's why we're talking about it, because regardless of the size of your business and the niche in the industry that you serve, I guarantee as a horse business owner, you are going to be in a launch process sooner rather than later. Now, one thing that you might also see as you go online and start to learn about launching, or as you continue listening to this podcast, because we'll continue to talk more about that, is the idea of live versus evergreen launching. Okay, so live just means there's a limited time period available for people to purchase. All right, so it means you are talking about it in a live atmosphere, right? It's not pre-recorded and just on autopilot, and it's a specific set of time. Evergreen is typically on, I wouldn't say autopilot necessarily. For some, it may be, but it's ongoing, right? You have a product or a service that if you're doing an evergreen launch, then maybe for new people that join your list, that's when you're selling to them. But it's not only in January, right? It's any time of the year as long as they join your list. So evergreen is ongoing. Now, for this podcast, we're talking specifically about live launching. So you have a set period that the doors are open to your program, or the cart is open to purchase your product or your service. All right. Now, we aren't diving into the pros and cons of evergreen versus live or the logistics of how to launch, But if that's something that you would like me to talk about in a future episode, just let me know, okay? Send me a message on Instagram or Facebook at Storm Lily Marketing. Shoot me an email at denise@stormlily.com. If you're interested in learning more about the launch process, then I'd be happy to talk about that in future episodes, but I want to know if that would be helpful to you, all right? So the focus of today then is how do you approach your launch so that you get the most out of it and actually enjoy it? Because let's go back to that definition of launching. It's a planned and coordinated effort. It's going to take some work, a lot of work. You're not going to shy away from work. I know that because you're a horse person, you're a horse business owner, and you do the work. But doing work doesn't have to mean it's not an enjoyable process. And there are some things that you can do intentionally to make it more enjoyable. And that's what I want to talk about today. All right, so let's dive into the 7 essentials for your next launch. Okay, so the first thing I want you to consider is redefining success. Now, you know that I love a good goal, right? I'm all about it. So I do want you to go into your launch with a goal in mind. We all know the saying, if you aim for nothing, you'll hit it every time. And I want you to go way past that, right? So I want you to hit your income goals, your profit goals for the year, your email list goal, your lead generation goal, your product sales goal. But on top of that, I would encourage you to consider how you view success when it comes to the launch. And let me tell you, this is something I am actively learning. As a 1 on the Enneagram, I definitely tend to look at goals as a win or lose, right? I win if I meet the goal, I lose if I don't. But what I am learning is that a more beneficial mindset is to think either I win or I learn, but I don't lose. Now, like I said, for those of you who are perfectionists or maybe you're competitive, I know this is a hard one, but just hear me out, okay? And remember, we're talking about launching. So if you hang your idea of a successful launch on one particular number and you don't hit that, then what's going to happen is you're going to throw everything else positive that came from that launch out the window. You're going to see it as a complete failure and feel totally defeated. You're not going to have gratitude for what you did learn or for the people who did purchase from you during your launch. And honestly, what will happen is you're going to be bitter about launching. So for launching, this means if you don't hit those numbers goals, which I do want you to have, I want you to also remember there are some additional measures of success so that you can celebrate your launch either way. All right. If you brought in new leads to your business, that's absolutely a positive thing. Maybe now that you have launched, you have more confidence in your offer. You have more confidence in front of the camera because you actually went live on video a few times and you don't usually do that, but because it was a launch, you did. And now you feel more comfortable with that. Or perhaps as a result of your launch, you have some residual income that comes in, right? You have new people coming in the door. They bought your new product, but now that they're new to you, they're going to buy something else as well. So there's additional income as a result of that launch. And then let's not forget to celebrate the people who did buy, because every purchase is a person, remember? So while it may be difficult, I want you to go into your launch, yes, with goals, but also with a very clear idea of what success looks like at the end of the day. All right? All right. Essential number 2 is for you to block extra time in your calendar when you are launching. Your launch is going to be above and beyond what you normally do as a business owner, right? In a live launch, it's a shorter period of time and it's going to be a little bit more intense, right? Maybe you are going to go live on Facebook and Instagram every day. Maybe you're going to send more emails than you typically would, so you're going to have to write and schedule those. Maybe you're going to do some YouTube videos. Maybe you're going to do some in-person interviews, right? It can go lots of different directions. But the point is, you're going to have some extra tasks. Now, in a perfect world, you would have a lighter load during your launch period. So you would plan ahead and say, I'm not going to take on as much this month. However, I also know that many of you either have a small team or you are your team. And so I know that might look a little bit different. So my encouragement is for you to plan to work just a little extra in the launch period. And be okay if you don't cook every night that week. If you're someone who typically cooks every night or you prepare meals for your family regularly, that week of the launch, give yourself some grace and see what you can do to make your life a little easier so that you can really hone in on that launch. Give the people around you, your family, your close friends, maybe give them a heads up. Hey, I've got a really big week coming up. You might see me on my phone more than usual. You might see me on the computer more than usual. You might see me on the phone more than usual, whatever the case may be. Just know this is not my norm. This is 1 week out of the year. Bear with me. Can you support me? That would be great. Now, just remember, this is not forever, okay? So this is not me saying that you just need to hustle more and work more because I know you're a hard worker. This is me telling you to plan ahead. Look at how you can make your life easier during that launch period. Typically, launches that are live are anywhere from 5 days to 2 weeks. So plan your life and your time accordingly, okay? All right, the third essential for your next launch to help you to really enjoy it is to be prepared. Now, I told you we aren't talking necessarily logistics and your entire launch plan on this episode. So yes, I want you to prepare ahead of time your sales emails, your social media posts, your images, your press release. All of those things are super important pieces to your launch puzzle. But on top of that, what I really want you to know about preparation is that you can enjoy the launch process when you are mentally and emotionally prepared for what's coming, okay? It's not all going to be roses. Let me just tell you that up front. And we'll talk some in the next essentials about some of these specific things that I want you to mentally prepare for. But just know that going into a launch, it's going to take a lot of your mental and emotional energy. For one, you're excited, right? So you're going to pour a lot of yourself into this because you believe in it. You know it's going to help people. So again, I'm just telling you, be prepared. Be prepared mentally because you're going to be writing more marketing copy. You may be having to think harder about some things. You may be having to respond to people's objections. There will be some things that are not your normal mental load or emotional load. So I want you to know that ahead of time going into it. All right? Okay, essential number 4 is to actively battle imposter syndrome. Because let me just tell you, friends, no matter what, the doubts will come. Honestly, it's almost a guarantee. I have been reading a book by, I think it's Stephen Pressfield, called Do the Thing. He has another one called The Art of War. And in both of those, he talks about how when you set out to do something great, there's something he calls the resistance, right? That's actively battling against you. And part of the resistance is this idea of comparison and imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough, right? And it can happen either way. During your launch, if things are going well and you are making sales, then you know what happens? You start to think, oh my gosh, can I really provide what I promised? Can I really do what I said I was going to do? Do I really have these skills or did I just think I did? Now that these people are paying me, I've got to live up to this, right? Or maybe you're thinking, I don't deserve to have this success. Or if the launch isn't going so well, you may start to think, well, obviously, I can't do this. This was a horrible idea. Maybe I don't really know what I'm doing. I obviously suck at sales, right? Either way, whether it's going well or not going well, imposter syndrome will rear its ugly head. So, to help you make launching enjoyable, because remember, that's what I want to give these essentials to you for, so you can enjoy the process. I want you to expect these types of thoughts to surface and be ready to battle them actively, okay? So how do you do that? We arm ourselves with the truth, right? About who you are, about why you're qualified. And I have some very practical ways that you can do that, okay? One of my favorites that I heard from a fellow podcaster is she has a folder in her email inbox that she calls her sunshine folder. And anytime she gets an encouraging note from a client, she saves that to her sunshine folder. And on the day where she's feeling, right, a little bit of imposter syndrome or she's not feeling up to the job, she goes and reads those notes to remind herself of the people she's serving and the people she's already served and helped, right? That her method works, her system works. She just needs to keep putting herself out there, okay? So the same for you. create a sunshine folder and remind yourself of the people and the horses that you have already helped. So when you start to feel unqualified, you'll go back and remind yourself of the facts of how qualified you really are. Now, for myself, I also will choose a Bible verse. I'll ask the Lord for a Bible verse that I can put on a Post-it note and put front and center or on my phone as a lock screen, again, to remind myself of what's true about myself and what God has promised me. And what's going to happen here is not a reflection of who I am, which we'll talk about in a minute. All right, next is the idea of some Post-it notes, actually. Take some Post-it notes and write on there what you know is true. Write on there your why, okay? Keep that why front and center. Keep stories in front of yourself. And then keep some friends nearby that will encourage you. Don't try to do this alone, okay? All of these things are going to help you to actively battle that imposter syndrome that is bound to happen during your launch, okay? All right, essential number 5. Do not take it personally. Not everyone on your email list or that sees your social media post or your Facebook ad is going to buy the product or service you are launching. Now, I know that it can be tempting to take that personally, right? That it means they don't like you. They didn't like your video. They don't like your program. They don't like the way you do things. They don't like the horses that you're showing, right? Whatever the case may be. It's important to pay attention for sure, right? If people aren't buying, I do want you to look at your messaging, look at your offer, evaluate to make sure that everything is what it should be to meet that audience and, provide a promise that really matters. But even then, those things are not a reflection of you as a person, okay? And that's what I mean when I talked about before. Know who you are, because a yes or a no buying decision from your audience does not reflect on you and your identity and your character. And I promise you, this is such an important essential for enjoying your launch. It's totally normal to get your feelings hurt when you hear no, right? Especially if you're launching something for the first time. But I want you to remember to keep going, okay? The yeses are out there. Your people are out there. You are doing the work. And the more you continue to do the work, the more you're going to clarify your message, the more you're going to meet people where they're at, the more they're going to buy. But if you start to take it personally, you get your feelings hurt, what's going to happen is you're going to stop. And you're going to stop selling. And then those people who need what you have to offer will not get it, okay? So remember that it's okay if they say no. It's not personal. And honestly, if it's not for them, you don't want it to be a yes, right? Because you want the right people in there. You don't want people that are going to buy and never even implement. You want people that are going to take action. Okay? All right. So do not take it personally. Essential number 6. We're almost done, friends. Essential number 6. Now, before I do this, I should tell you, in case you're new to the podcast, I will have an outline of this on the show notes. So if you're listening and you're thinking, dang, I'm listening while I'm driving, I wish I could take notes, please know you can go to stormlily.com/98 and you can get a highlight of today's episode and you can see all 7 of these essentials listed out, okay? All right, let's keep going. Number 6, review and plan, all right? I want you to sit down with pen and paper or open your laptop or your tablet and get a document or notes open and evaluate what you just did, okay? When your launch is over, do a brain dump. Get it from your head, because I know you've got it swirling in your head, right? Get it from your head to an actual document. Because if you don't, I promise you, you think you will remember, but you won't remember this for your next launch, okay? Now, I don't want you to just focus on what did not work as you're doing this. I want you to focus on both what worked and what didn't work. What are you going to do more of next time around because that worked well? What will you do less of next time around because that didn't seem to work so well? What stats are you going to track so that you can compare to your next launch, right? You can see the growth, or maybe you can see a weakness or a strength, okay? Stats are super important when it comes to launching because they're data that's going to help you make good decisions, okay? Again, not a reflection of you, but data, okay? All right, so review and plan. Now, remember I talked about the idea of keeping good friends around you. If you are in this alone and you don't have a team that's helping you, then I would say enlist a business friend, somebody that gets it and that you can bounce ideas off of and that you can talk through. Somebody that's watched you during the launch and can say, it seemed like you really seemed to get excited about this. You weren't so excited about this. That can be super honest with you. So in that review process, maybe you can have a coffee date with a friend, get on the phone for 30 minutes and talk through it with somebody else. All right, that's reviewing and planning. My final essential for you, friend, is for you to celebrate. And this is important, I promise. Because remember, you launched. That is a very big deal. And it is a success that you did it, and it's worthy of celebrating. So whether you reward yourself with a day off or a morning or afternoon off, or you go buy a new pair of jeans or a new pair of boots, or maybe you go get your favorite fancy coffee that you don't usually splurge on, whatever it looks like for you, take the time to celebrate, okay? Acknowledge those efforts and celebrate the wins. Honestly, it's so interesting because science backs this up, and they will say that when you take time to acknowledge your wins, you're really setting yourself up for more wins, okay? So keep that positive thinking, celebrate what you've done because launching is a super big deal. All right, I know 7 was a lot, but I thought each of these were so important and essential, right, for your next launch. So I would love to hear from you. If you have launched before, I would love to hear your experience, or if you've been considering launching a new product or service or creating a membership or an online course, but you're not really sure what that looks like. I would also love to hear from you. It would let me know if future podcast episodes on launching would be helpful. Okay, so shoot me a message, shoot me an email, Storm Lily Marketing. Either way, you can find me, and I would love to hear from you. Now, of course, if you've enjoyed this episode, I would also appreciate if you would share it with a fellow business friend, okay? And especially if you would leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That is truly how they know how to recommend helpful podcasts to other people on the app, okay? So if this podcast has been helpful to you, I would be so grateful if you would jump over to your favorite listening app and leave a review. And like I said, I know Apple is one of the favorites these days still when we look at the stats, and they do have a review option there. So please do that. And join me next week. I've got a super fun outside of the box episode for you. And as you can tell, we're getting close to 100 episodes. So that's also very exciting. So we're almost there. So stay tuned for that. All right. But in the meantime, take these essentials, keep them in your back pocket for your next launch. And I will see you here again next week. Have an amazing day, friends.